Hello, cybersecurity enthusiasts and you reluctant compliance officers too. Welcome to today's webinar on understanding the 48 CFR rule, or as I like to call it, the rule that makes everyone check their calendar twice to make sure this is really happening. So my name is Rick, and I am the Strategic Communications Guru for Move America, and I'm here with the Project Spectrum outreach team to walk you through what might be the most important regulatory change to hit the defense industrial base since, well, the last really important regulatory change. But I will say this one's different, folks. This one has teeth, it's got timelines, and it's got consequences. And unlike my attempts at home improvement projects, this actually is probably going to succeed. So I'm going to ask you to grab your coffee or your energy drink if you're one of those people. Silence your phone unless it's got multi-factor authentication enabled, in which case we approve. And let's go ahead and dive into the world where compliance meets reality. All right, so about this guy who's going to be requirements. We're like your cybersecurity GPS. Except instead of telling you to make a U-turn when possible, we tell you to enable multi-factor authentication, but immediately just something that ruined your outdoor plans. So I'm here to help you navigate these new requirements without losing your mind or your government contract. Now, a few things before we get rolling. Let's cover some housekeeping, and unlike actual housekeeping, this won't take all weekend and you won't have to worry about dusting around the tchotchkes. First up, your microphone is muted and your camera is not enabled for this session. Yes, I know you might have brilliant comments or devastating questions, but we need to keep things orderly. Think of it like cybersecurity, controlled access only. Want to make sure you check how your name is displayed. If it shows up as user 123 or do not disturb, your colleagues might not know it's you. Now, unless that's your cybersecurity strategy, in which case we may need to have a slightly deeper conversation. If you've got questions, fantastic. Drop them in the chat box. Our expert team will tackle as many as possible. Really, I'm just like a cybersecurity themed game show host, except instead of fabulous prizes, you get compliance guidance. All right, maybe that is not the best selling point, but trust me, in this industry, compliance guidance is a fabulous prize. And finally, by staying on this webinar, because we are coming to you from the wonderful two-party consent state of Maryland, you are consenting to be part of a recorded event. So if you're attending in your pajamas, again, no judgment. I respect the work from home hustle, and thankfully your camera's off. If you don't want to be part of a recorded webinar, this is where we give you the opportunity to go ahead and drop off now and wait for the replay. I promise you we will sort of miss you. I'm going to give that in 3, 2, and 1. Okay, everybody who's sticking around, thank you so much for sticking around. We are appreciative of you staying with us. So let's go ahead and jump over to your agenda. Let me give you the roadmap for today's journey through the wonderland of federal cybersecurity regulations. We're going to start with the big picture, understanding why Project Spectrum exists and what makes the defense industrial base such a juicy target for those cyber bad guys. Spoiler alert, it's not because they want your lunch recipes unless you're developing some kind of classified sandwich technology, in which case, let's talk. Then we'll dive into the CMMC final rule itself. We've got the background, we've got the evolution, we've got why September was such a big deal. We'll talk about what FCI and CUI actually mean, who needs to care about affirming officials, and how this whole thing affects your ability to win and keep DOW contracts. After that, we're going to get into your responsibilities as contractors. And yes, that includes making sure your subcontractors aren't the weak link in your security chain, because you know what happens to the weakest link. It's goodbye. We'll discuss POAMs, timelines, and I'll walk you through a real world scenario that'll make all of this click I promise. Finally, we're going to cover the amazing resources that Project Spectrum has available because nobody should have to figure this out alone. And then we'll open it up for questions. You can, again, ask them anytime throughout the webinar in the chat. But I promise to answer everything I can, except can we just ignore this? And the answer to that is always no, and here's why. All right, so now let's go ahead and talk about Project Spectrum for a moment, because understanding who we are and what we do helps you understand why we're so passionate about helping you navigate this compliance landscape. You see, Project Spectrum exists to bolster homeland defense. Now, I know that sounds like something from a superhero movie, but it's actually pretty straightforward. We provide a comprehensive platform with all the tools and training you need to increase cybersecurity awareness and maintain compliance with the DoW contracting requirements. And here's the thing, and this is important. We are not just checking boxes here. We're strengthening national security by supporting businesses like yours that provide critical technological solutions like yours to our defense infrastructure, which helps all of us. You see, every time you implement a security control, you're not just protecting your business. You're protecting our warfighters, our defense contractors, and again, ultimately, our national security because we're all in it together. We're here to help you protect the homeland while keeping your business competitive. Because let's be honest, you got into business to make amazing products or provide incredible services, not to become a full-time cybersecurity expert. That's where we're going to come in and try to help you out. Everybody get that? Good. All right, so let's go over to the threat landscape. And for those of you who've joined our webinars in the past, you know that we talk about this every time, but this really is why we're all here in the first place. It is time for some sobering statistics that'll make you want to check your passwords right now. You see, the defense industrial base is under attack. And I'm not being dramatic here. Small and medium businesses, SMBs as we like to call them, like many of you, you are absolutely on the front lines. Check out these numbers. 43% of all cyber attacks target SMBs. That's nearly half. And here's the kicker. Only 14% of SMBs, not 14% of the 43%, 14% of all SMBs have plans to mitigate these attacks. That's like knowing there's a storm coming and only 14% of the people bother to close their windows. Now, 74% of breaches are caused by human error. We always refer to that as the problem exists between the keyboard and the chair, or the chair and the keyboard. Basically, we're our own worst enemy. Doesn't matter how you put that acronym. Someone clicks the wrong link, uses a weak password, or accidentally emails sensitive data to the wrong person, and boom, you've got a breach on your hands. Now, the cost of these attacks, we're talking just dollars here, dollars and cents, as in, oh my goodness, I had no cents and now it's costing me dollars. We're talking anywhere from $653,000 to $826,000 on average. That's for each incident. That's the average. That's not pocket change, folks. That's, oh no, we might have to sell the building money for a lot of small businesses. And here's the real gut punch. Only 17% of small and medium businesses actually have the proper insurance coverage for cyber attacks. You don't just put that on your regular property and casualty insurance rate card. This is specialized cyber insurance. So not only are you a target, but most businesses aren't even financially prepared for when, not if, but when something happens. So why is it that SMBs are targeted? That's a great question. Look, you've got intellectual property and trade secrets. You've got dual use technologies. You've got access to sensitive government information. You're interconnected with those larger defense contractors. You're like the side door to the mansion. It's easier to breach than the front entrance, but you know what? The bad guys, they get to the same place, and that's really the problem. All right, so let's dig a little deeper into why small and medium businesses are basically wearing hack me signs. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I don't think anybody actually has those signs out in front of their business or hanging from their backs. First, you've got the supply chain access point issue. Think of the defense supply chain like a chain of dominoes. The attackers know that if they can knock over one small business domino, they can potentially access an entire network of business relationships. They're not always after your data specifically. remember that. Sometimes you're just the stepping stone to the bigger prize. It's kind of like Ocean's 11, except instead of George Clooney, it's some hacker in a basement somewhere eating Hot Pockets. But even that's not true anymore, because these threat actors, these are some sophisticated folks out there. They're sophisticated. It's a big business. Nation states, you've got these huge companies that do this kind of stuff. Ugh. Then you've got the intellectual property value. Even if you think your IP isn't that valuable, trust me, there's someone on the black market that disagrees. State-sponsored campaigns and cyber criminals are always looking for technical specifications, manufacturing processes, or proprietary designs. Your innovations, trust me, they're valuable, whether you realize it or not. And then finally, you've got the limited in-house cybersecurity resources. Look, we get it. You've got a 25-person or less company making precision components for defense systems. The focus there is rightly on production and delivery. It's doing what you do best. Unfortunately, that often means cybersecurity falls to whoever in the office knows computers, which is usually the person who figured out how to connect the printer to the computer. The lack of a dedicated security team makes it harder to detect threats, respond to incidents, or even anticipate what's coming. And trust me, the attackers know this. They're specifically looking for organizations where the doors might not be as secure, the monitoring might not be as tight, and the response might not be as quick. So what are the top threats to SMBs? Well, your specific threats that keep your cybersecurity professionals up at night. These are like the greatest hits of the cyber threat world. Unlike actual greatest hits, nobody actually wants to hear these. You've got phishing and social engineering, the digital equivalent of someone calling and pretending to be from the IRS. It's a simple email. It looks legitimate. Maybe it's a fake invoice, and suddenly someone's entering their credentials into a malicious website. It's low tech, it's old school, and it still works embarrassingly well. You've got ransomware, which can disrupt production. When ransomware hits, it doesn't just lock up your data. It can literally bring your entire assembly line to a halt. Imagine trying to explain to your prime contractor that you can't deliver your components on time because all your systems are encrypted and some hacker in another country is demanding Bitcoin. Missed deadlines translate directly to lost revenue, damaged relationships, and potentially losing future contracts. You've got the supply chain vulnerabilities. Remember what I said about being the domino? A single weak link in a third-party connection can expose your entire operation. Maybe it's a vendor, maybe it's a service provider, maybe it's that IT consultant who still uses password 123 and thinks it's secure because he capitalizes password. The interconnected nature of the DIB just makes the supply chain attacks especially dangerous because they're hard to predict and even harder to prevent. Then again, we talked about intellectual property theft. This is the one can really hurt you long term. Recovering from ransomware is expensive and disruptive, but at least you can rebuild. When someone steals your IP, whether it's your designs, your processes, or your competitive advantage, they can cause long-term damage to your market position and reputation. And competitors suddenly have access to your innovations. You might not even know it happened until you see your technology being used by someone else. Then you've got operational disruption. Beyond the immediate financial impact, cyber incidents create lingering chaos. Equipment malfunctions, compliance variations or violations, production delays, shaken customer trust. Even after you've recovered technically, you're dealing with the aftermath for months or even years. So we've covered the why SMBs are targeted, why this matters, why you can't just stick your head in the sand and hope it all goes away. Now let's talk about the what the government is doing about it, and what you need to do to stay in the game. That's where CMMC, the Cybersecurity Maturity Model Certification, comes in, because in government and defense, if it doesn't have an acronym, does it even exist? This is where the rubber meets the road, folks. CMMC isn't just a best practice or a suggestion. It's rapidly becoming a requirement for doing business with the Department of Defense, Department of War, whatever they want to call themselves next week. So let's dive in and start demystifying this thing, shall we? So the CMMC model is actually pretty elegant once you understand it. Think of it like a ladder with 3 rungs, where each rung Each rung represents a higher level of cybersecurity capability. Unlike my capability today to talk, apologize for that. CMMC level 1 is foundational. This is for businesses that only handle federal contract information, or FCI. 15 requirements aligned with FAR 52.204-21, basic data safeguarding, the equivalent of making sure your doors are locked and your windows aren't wide open. You need an annual self-assessment and an annual affirmation from a senior company official, and you're done. CMMC Level 2 is advanced. This is for businesses handling controlled unclassified information, or CUI. It includes 110 requirements that are aligned with NIST SP 800-171 Revision 2. This is where things get more serious. Depending on your specific program, you'll either do a self-assessment every 3 years, or you'll get assessed by a C3PAO. That's a certified third-party assessment organization, not a droid from Star Wars. Oh, plus you have to also have annual affirmations. Then you've got CMMC Level 3, which is expert. This is the top tier. This is for businesses that are handling CUI related to national security programs or high-value assets. We're talking 134 requirements. You've got the 110 from Level 2, plus an additional 24 from NIST SP 800-172. You'll need a DIB CAC assessment every 3 years and annual affirmations. Again, serious stuff, folks. Now, the beauty of the system is that it's scalable. Not everyone needs to be Level 3, and that's okay. The level you need depends on the type of information you're handling and the contracts you're pursuing, and they will sure let you know what level you need to have. So here's where things get real. September 2025 wasn't just another month on the calendar. It marked the official start of CMMC implementation across all the defense contracts. The Defense Federal Acquisition Regulation Supplement, we call it DFARS because we love our acronyms, became official in the Federal Register on September 10th, 2025. Phase 1, that begins on November 10th, 2025, 3 weeks from now. That's not some distant future date anymore, folks. It's now. A few weeks. You should probably start working on this immediately if you haven't already time. Why does it matter so much? Well, we've got two reasons. First, adhering to cybersecurity standards is non-negotiable in today's digital landscape. There's no opt-out button. There's no maybe later option. If you want to work with DOW, this is the price of admission. Second, meeting these Phase 1 requirements doesn't just protect sensitive information, though that's obviously crucial. It also enhances your competitiveness in the federal procurement process. When two companies are bidding on the same contract and one has their CMMC house in order while the other is scrambling, guess which one's more likely to win? So what should you do? We've got 3 things for you. Number 1, you need to assess your current cybersecurity posture. Where are you now? What gaps exist? What's already in place? Then you need to develop a compliance strategy. How will you close those gaps? And what resources do you need? And finally, what's your timeline? Then you need to stay informed, because let me just tell you something. Cybersecurity is evolving. Subscribe to updates, attend webinars like this one, and keep your finger on the pulse of what's changing. Being proactive about these requirements can set your business apart and pave the way for future government contracting opportunities. Or, you could wait until the last minute and panic. I don't recommend that strategy, but I have seen it happen more times than we'd like to count. So why is it that the final rule matters? Let's talk about why this specific rule, the 48 CFR Final Rule, is such a big deal. It's such an intimidating name, isn't it? You see, this rule integrates CMMC requirements directly into DOW contracting. It's not a separate, parallel thing you're going to do on the side. It's baked right into the contract language. At its core, this rule ensures that all defense contractors handling FCI or CUI demonstrate verified cybersecurity protections before and during contract performance. Let me emphasize those 2 words. Before and during. It's kind of like with Sesame Street. Remember, near, far, before, during. Before means you can't win a contract without proving that you have cybersecurity readiness. Those days are over. It's not, yep, we'll get to that later as soon as you send us a check. It's no, you have to have it before you can even win the contract, let alone perform the work and get paid. During means you have to maintain that readiness throughout the entire contract life cycle. You can't just achieve compliance on day one and then let everything slide. This is about continuous compliance, going over and over, continuous vigilance, continuous effort. For small companies, and I know many of you fit in this category, that means 3 concrete actions. First of all, you need to implement the right controls because based on your CMMC level, you need specific technical and procedural safeguards in place. Then you need to document compliance in SPRS. The Supplier Performance Risk System, SPRS, again, we love our acronyms, is where you officially record your CMMC status. If it's not in SPRS, as far as DOW is concerned, it doesn't exist. Then you need to maintain continuous cyber readiness. This isn't a set it and forget it situation. You need ongoing monitoring, regular updates, and periodic reassessments. Think of it this way. You wouldn't run a manufacturing facility without regular equipment maintenance, right? So now your cybersecurity requires the same kind of ongoing attention. So just keep that in mind. Now, as far as the background and evolution timeline goes, let's take a quick trip down memory lane because understanding where we came from can help us understand where we're going. Back in 2020, this is where it all started. The interim DFARS rule introduced cybersecurity self-assessments. CMMC was originally conceived with 5 levels. Yes, 5. It was more complicated than ordering coffee at a fancy cafe. I'll take a CMMC level 3 with an extra shot of incident response and a poem on the side, please. And put that under Rick with an I. In 2024, the DOW realized that 5 levels might just be overkill. And it was, especially to everybody who ever tried to implement any of those 5 levels. So they decided to streamline it to 3 levels under CMMC 2.0 and finalize that under 32 CFR Part 170. This made everything more manageable and more aligned with existing NIST standards. It was like they Marie Kondo'd the whole system. Does this level spark joy and improve security? No, then out it goes. In 2025, we're now here. For those of you who didn't know what the year was, we've got the final rule, 48 CFR, which again makes CMMC a contractual mandate. It's not optional, not suggested, not we'd prefer you did this. It's mandatory. It's in the contract. It's happening. See, this evolution shows that DOW is absolutely serious about cybersecurity. They're cybersecurious. No. But they're also trying to be practical about implementation. They listen to industry feedback. We're going to talk about that in just a bit. They also simplified where they could, and they created a phased rollout to give businesses time to prepare. But guess what? The grace period, it's ending, folks. The training wheels are coming off. It's time to ride. We're pushing you out into the middle of the street, and there may be a garbage truck coming. So let's talk definitions. I know, this is the part where everyone's eyes start to glaze over, again, remembering the Krispy Kreme donut. But stick with me because understanding these terms is crucial. Again, you've got FCI, Federal Contract Information, falls under FAR Clause 52.204-21. Sensitive but not classified information provided by or generated for the government under a contract. Think contract information, org charts, process documentation, contract performance reports, RFP responses, basically anything you create or receive because of your government contract work that isn't meant for public consumption. Then you've got CUI, Controlled Unclassified Information. This falls under DFARS Clause 252.204-7012. CUI is a broad category of sensitive information that, while unclassified, requires safeguarding and dissemination controls pursuant to federal laws, regulations, and policies. Examples include proprietary business information, unclassified controlled technical information, anything marked official use only or for official use only, or law enforcement sensitive. See, here's the key difference. FCI is about contract administration information. CUI is about the technical and sensitive information. FCI is level 1 territory in CMMC. CUI is level 2 or level 3. Then you've got the CMMC unique identifier or the UID. This is a unique 10-character code that is assigned to each system assessment and tracked in SPRS. Think of it kind of like a social security number for your cybersecurity assessment. It's how DOW tracks your compliance status. Why do these definitions matter? Letting you unglaze your eyes. See, you have to know whether you're handling FCI or CUI, because that's going to determine your required CMMC level. And that's going to determine your entire compliance strategy. If you get any of that wrong and you're building your cybersecurity house on the wrong foundation, guess what? Big windstorm coming and it's all crumbling down. All right, so now when you take a look at the final rule scope, let's answer the million-dollar question. Does this apply to me? The short answer, if you're a contractor or subcontractor whose systems process, store, or transmit FCI or CUI during contract performance, then the answer is yes, it applies to you. Now, understand, there are always exclusions. If you're only selling commercial off-the-shelf items, we're talking office paper, basic hardware, standard supplies with no government-specific customization, guess what? You're excluded. You're selling purely commercial stuff that any civilian could buy at any time. But see, here's where people often trip up. If you handle even one email containing a government purchase order, suddenly all your systems are in scope. That email system, that's in scope. The servers that store it, they're in scope. The file shares where you might save attachments, in scope. So let me give you an example. Imagine Delta Fabrications. We're going to just make that up. A small machining company with 25 employees that produces aircraft brackets for a prime contractor. Even though they're just making metal brackets, they're receiving DOW design data, specs, technical drawings. Those are all CUI, which means Delta's email system, file servers, and any computers that touch that data need to meet those CMMC requirements. You see, you have to understand the DOW estimates that this is going to impact more than 337,000 entities, with about 68% of those being small businesses. So if you're thinking, surely this doesn't apply to little old us, you're probably wrong. It's better to check and be sure than to assume. We all know what happens when you assume and lose out on contract opportunities. All right, so now that we understand, and I just want to make sure that I understand if I went to the right place. Yes, okay. Now that we've covered what CMMC is, why it exists, who needs to comply, let's talk about what you actually need to do about it. This, again, is where theory meets practice, where regulations meet reality, where, oh, that's interesting becomes, oh, no, we have work to do. But again, what you're talking about, is I'm going to break it down into manageable pieces. Think of compliance as eating an elephant. How do you do it? One bite at a time, and maybe with some hot sauce, because I understand elephants a little gamey. So when you're talking about steps to becoming compliant, you've got affirming officials. One of the, and I'm sorry, I just keep flipping around on my slides, and I'm going to ask for your forgiveness on that because my finger seems to have a mind of its own. One of the first steps you need to take, and I mean right at the beginning, is appointing an affirming official. This used to be called a senior company official, but they've rebranded it with a fancier name. It's kind of like same job, different title, right? This typically is your CISO, if you have one, your CISO, your IT director, or an executive with authority and knowledge about your cybersecurity practices. This person has a big responsibility. They are certifying your company's ongoing compliance with CMMC requirements. When they sign that affirmation in SPRS, they're legally attesting that everything is true and complete to the best of their knowledge. So let me emphasize, this is like signing your tax return. You're putting your name on a document saying, yes, we meet these requirements. Yes, our controls are in place. Yes, we're maintaining them. And just like with your tax return, false affirmations can result in False Claims Act liability. And trust me, folks, that's not a slap on the wrist. That's serious legal consequences that can include hefty fines and even criminal penalties in some extreme cases. So, who should be your affirming official? Again, you want to choose someone who understands your cybersecurity program, has authority to make decisions, is willing to take the responsibility seriously, and can sleep at night knowing that they've signed off on your compliance. This isn't a job you give to someone just because they're the only person who knows that when the router is blinking, you unplug it and wait 2 minutes and plug it back in, and then the internet starts working again. Believe me, that's not what you want to do. So when you've got policy and award eligibility, here's where the rubber meets the road. If you want to win or renew a DOW contract, there are a few things you must do, not should do, not could do, not might do, must do. First, you have to post your CMMC self-assessment or certification results in SPRS before the award, not after. Not we're working on it and we think we're going to have it. It's before, as in the contracting officer will check SPRS, and if your status isn't there or doesn't match what's required, you're not getting that contract. It's going to be an absolute full stop. Then you've got to maintain that status throughout the contract life cycle. You can't let your certification expire halfway through a 3-year contract. You can't decide that, this whole maintaining security thing with the controls is just too expensive and it's too annoying. Look, you've committed to this level of security when you won the contract. You need to maintain it. Then you need to have your affirming official annually confirm continuous compliance. Every year, someone with that authority needs to look at your cybersecurity program and say, yep, still good. Requirements are still in place. We're still compliant. And let me just say, this is not optional. It's baked into the rule. This eliminates the old check the box compliance mentality, where companies would do the minimum to pass an assessment and let everything slide until the next assessment rolled around. I'm not looking at anybody specific, but maybe you kind of, I don't know, maybe you kind of just went through that. I'm not really sure. It's all good. Trust me, those days are over. Now you have to actively demonstrate that your protections are operational and up to date. Think of it this way. You wouldn't drive your car for years without a safety inspection, right? Right? Hopefully not. Well, maybe you would, but you shouldn't. CMMC ensures that your cybersecurity is continually roadworthy, continually maintained, continually effective. Now, let's talk about your day-to-day responsibilities under this rule. This is the practical stuff, the operational requirements, the things that will actually change how you do business. Under the 48 CFR Final Rule, contractors must keep a current CMMC status at or above the level specified in your contract. If your contract requires level 2, you need to maintain level 2. If you exceed it, that's great. You can exceed it if you want. Level 3 definitely covers level 2 requirements, but you can't fall below it. Complete annual affirmations of continuous compliance. We talked about this already, but it bears repeating. Every year, that affirming official needs to confirm you're still compliant. So set a reminder, put it on your calendar, make it someone's specific job to ensure it happens on time. Then you need to submit and maintain CMMC UID in SPRS. Your unique identifier needs to be current and accurate in the supplier performance risk system. It's your official record. This is what contracting officers will check. Then ensure your subcontractors are processing FCI or CUI, those that are meeting their equivalent requirements. Here's where it gets interesting. You have to understand, you're not just responsible for your own company's compliance anymore. If you're the prime contractor or you're somewhere in the middle of that chain and you have subs reporting to you and you're reporting to a prime, guess what? You need to be the one to ensure your subs are also compliant. Let me give you an example. Say you're a prime contractor and you plan to share design blueprints with a supplier. See, that supplier has to have the same or higher CMMC level as you. If they don't, you can't share that information with them, period. Find a different supplier or help your current supplier get compliant. But you cannot flow CUI or FCI to a non-compliant subcontractor. This is huge because it means you need to vet your entire supply chain. That's not always easy, but it's absolutely necessary. So when you're talking about subcontractor compliance and flow down, let's dig a little deeper into this whole subcontractor thing because it's going to be one of the biggest challenges for contractors, especially prime contractors. Prime contractors must flow down their requirements to all subs who handle FCI or CUI. And again, that means before you award a subcontract, you need to ensure the vendor has the correct CMMC level and make sure that it's affirmed in SPRS. Practical scenario time. Let's say you hire an IT service provider to manage your systems. Those systems contain DOW information. Guess what? That IT provider needs to be compliant too. They're processing, they're storing, they're transmitting, whether it's FCI or CUI on your behalf. Same goes for your cloud storage vendors. If you're backing up DOW data to the cloud, that cloud provider needs to meet CMMC requirements. This is why FedRAMP authorized cloud services have become so popular in the DIB. They're specifically designed to meet these kinds of requirements. So here's what this means for you operationally, right? Let's talk about plans of actions and milestones. Again, I promise to fix this, and here's when type of document. You're recognizing that perfection takes time, and DOW recognizes that too. So they allow POAMs for certain cases in CMMC level 2 and level 3. These are structured plans that outline what remains to be fixed, who's responsible for fixing it, and by when, but they give you a maximum timeline of 180 days. So here's the important note. Level 1 companies cannot use POAMs. If you're at level 1, all 15 requirements need to be fully implemented at the time of assessment. No exceptions, no extensions, no, we're working on it. Why? Because level 1 represents foundational basic cybersecurity. If you can't even get the basic requirements in place, DOW doesn't want you handling their data yet. It's like needing a driver's license before you can legally drive. You don't get to drive while you're working on getting your license, even though that's called a learner's permit, but that's not what this is. It's not the same thing. For level 2 and level 3, POAMs recognize that some controls are complex and might require vendor implementations, budget approvals, or significant technical work. But you can't just throw everything into a POAM and call it a day. There are limits on how many POAMs you can have and what types of requirements can be covered by them. So kind of think of it this way. If you fail your car inspection for a broken headlight, you can fix it and return for re-inspection. That makes sense. But you can't drive around without headlights while you're planning to fix them. Similarly, level 1 must fix all issues before attestation. For levels 2 and 3, you can have a few things in POAM status, but your core security posture still needs to be solid. Got it? Got it? Good. Glad to hear it. All right, let's go on to the next slide. There we are. So let's talk about when all this happens, because timing is everything in compliance, just like in comedy. Not that I fancy myself a comedian. The rollout is phased over several years after the rule's effective date. So we've got phase 1, which is in year 1, which is now. Limited contracts selected by the CMMC program office will require CMMC. This is the pilot phase. This is the let's see how this works in the real world phase. If you get selected for phase 1, congratulations, you're a guinea pig. But hey, at least you'll have a head start on everyone else. Then you've got phase 2, which is years 2 and 3. This is where broader integration across most DOW programs is going to happen. More and more contracts will include CMMC requirements. If you're not already working on compliance during this phase, you are absolutely behind the curve. It is a bad place to be. You don't want to be there. Trust me, it is better to not be there. Then you've got phase 3, all right? So phase 3 is that lovely area where all applicable contracts require compliance. This is year 4 and beyond. So by 2028, you are simply looking at the fact that every contractor that processes FCI or CUI must maintain an active CMMC certification or self-assessment in SPRS. There's no more, maybe our contract won't requirement. If you handle this type of information, you need CMMC, end of story. So here's what we're recommending. Don't wait until your specific contract requires CMMC. Just start working on it now. Why? Number 1, you're going to be ahead of the rush. Assessors are going to get very busy, so are consultants, and so are training providers. Number 2, you're going to have the time to do it right, because rushing through compliance, that leads to mistakes and gaps and all kinds of ugly, fun, horrible stuff. Number three, you're going to be more competitive. When you're bidding against someone who's scrambling to get compliant, your ready to go status is an advantage. Trust me, the clock is ticking, folks. It's better to be early than be sorry. So let's give you an example scenario with a small manufacturer. Again, we're going to make it real with this nice concrete example. You're going to meet Delta Fabrications. I'm going to keep using them because they represent a typical small dib contractor. Again, 25-person metal shop. They make precision brackets for Navy aircraft. Before CMMC, their cybersecurity was, let's call it basic, okay? You know, they had shared passwords, they had local backups that may or may not work, minimal training beyond don't click suspicious links, and a general hope that no one would target them. If this sounds familiar, I'm sure some of you are probably nodding or shaking your head right now. Trust me, under the final rule, Delta has to do the following things, and these are musts. These are not nice to haves. These are must haves. They need to identify which computers and employees handle any DOW data because not everything's in scope. Personal devices, systems that never touch government data, the computer running the break room coffee maker, hopefully, those can be excluded. But anything that processes, stores, or transmits FCI or CUI, that is in scope. You need to implement controls like multi-factor authentication, MFA, firewalls, encryption. Trust me, this isn't rocket science, okay? What I'm telling you right now, it isn't terrible, but it requires investment. MFA for all user accounts, absolutely all of them. Proper firewalls configured correctly. Encryption for data at rest and in transit. These are all standard requirements that every organization handling sensitive data must have. Then you need to perform a self-assessment and post those results in SPURS. See, Delta needs to honestly evaluate their implementation of all requirements, document those results, and upload them to the SPURS system before bidding on any contracts. Then have an executive sign an annual affirmation. Every year, Delta's president or another senior official needs to affirm that they're maintaining compliance. This turns cybersecurity from a checklist into a daily practice. It becomes part of how Delta does business, not something they think about once every few years when an audit rolls around. And here's the beautiful part. By implementing all these requirements, Delta isn't just checking compliance boxes. They're actually protecting their businesses. They're actually intellectual property safeguarding. Their ability to continue serving their customers is protected. The compliance requirements ultimately, as we said before, our national defense. Okay, so we have gone through a whole lot of information today. We've covered a whole lot of ground. Let's bring it all together with some key takeaways you need to remember. The 48 CFR Final Rule integrates cybersecurity into every stage of defense contracting. This isn't an add-on, it's not optional, and it's not going away. It's fundamental to how DOW does business now. So here's your action plan, your to-do list starting today now. Know your required CMMC level. Are you handling FCI or CUI? What do your current and future contracts require? Get clarity on this immediately. If you're not sure, reach out to your contracting officers, or you can reach out to Project Spectrum. We'll provide you some guidance. Conduct a self-assessment or a C3PAO audit depending on your required CMMC level. For level 1 and some level 2 contracts, you can self-assess. For others, you'll need a third-party assessment. Either way, you'll need to know where you stand right now, what controls are in place, what gaps exist, what's your compliance score. You need to upload your results and affirm compliance in SPURS. This is your official record. This is what makes you eligible for contracts. Without an entry in SPURS, you might as well be invisible to DOW contracting officers. You need to keep your systems current and train your staff. Compliance is continuous. Technology changes, threats evolve, employees turn over. You need ongoing training. You need regular updates. You need periodic reassessments. Believe me when I say this, folks, it's a journey, not a destination. Here's the thing I really want to emphasize. This rule is not just regulatory bureaucracy. Yes, it creates compliance requirements and paperwork and costs, but at its heart, it's about protecting America's defense innovation. It's about ensuring that our adversaries can't steal our technology, compromise our systems, or undermine our national security through cyber means. Every time you implement a requirement, every time you train an employee, every time you update a system, you are contributing to national defense. That might sound grandiose, but it's true. Small actions by thousands of contractors add up to a more secure defense industrial base. By understanding and implementing these requirements now, you gain both security resilience and a competitive edge. You protect your business while positioning yourself for future opportunities. And in anybody's book, that should be an absolute win-win. So we're going to take a look at some Project Spectrum resources. And again, my finger is flopping all over the place. Now, I know what some of you are thinking. Rick, this is overwhelming. Where do I even start? How do I even know if I'm doing this right? Great news. You don't have to figure this out alone. Project Spectrum has an entire arsenal of resources that are specifically designed to help businesses like yours navigate these requirements. Take a look at our artifacts, assessment tools, and advisory services, SSP templates, POEM templates, one-on-one cyber advisory services, a self-assessment toolkit, a cyber readiness dashboard, a SPUR score generation and uploads section, and remediation plan templates. We're giving you everything that you need to possibly keep going in your cybersecurity journey. Under our education and information services, we're offering training and education for your entire team, from executives to technicians. We've got cybersecurity blogs, regular updates on the latest threats, regulations, and best practices. We've got news items, curated content so you don't have to wade through everything yourself. And then we've got Project Spectrum briefings, webinars like this one, covering specific topics in depth. All of these resources are designed with small and medium businesses in mind. We know that you don't have an unlimited budget. We know you don't have a dedicated cybersecurity team. We've built tools that are practical, affordable, and actually usable by real businesses dealing with real constraints. So all you need to do is visit our website, projectspectrum.io. You can explore everything we've got available. Many resources are completely free. We genuinely just want to help you succeed, and I hope you do understand that. Now, before we move on, I've got something important to share, and this is your chance to actually influence how the DoW rolls out CMMC support. Our good friends and benefactors at the Office of Small Business Programs are doing something pretty cool right now. They're actually asking small businesses, that's you, for your input on how you're preparing for CMMC implementation. I know, the government asking for feedback before implement something. My goodness, mark your calendars. This is absolutely historic. But seriously, your voice is critical here. OSBP wants to understand the real-time impact on small businesses so they can tailor their resources, their support, and their guidance during this transition. And let's be honest, folks, they need to hear from you, because the folks writing regulations in Washington don't always know what it's like to be a 25-person or less shop trying to figure out NIST 800-171 while, like running an actual business. So they've got a short anonymous survey at the link you see on your screen right now. There's a QR code there. When I say short, I mean it won't take longer than your coffee break. Some people's coffee breaks are pretty long. I know someone who's still on one from 3 years ago. The survey explores your current readiness, your concerns, your challenges, and your efforts related to CMMC compliance. And here's why you should actually take the survey instead of just throwing it on the I'll do that later pile. Your responses will help ensure that the support small businesses receive is relevant, timely, and aligned with real-world needs. Not theoretical needs, not what some consultant thinks you need, but what you actually need. But I have to tell you, the feedback deadline is November the 9th. That is coming up fast, so don't procrastinate on this one. Participation is completely voluntary. I mean, completely. And it's anonymous unless you choose to provide your contact information. If you do want to stay informed or receive follow-up from the OSBP team, you can actually opt in for that. Just think of this as your opportunity to help shape how CMMC support gets delivered. Will they actually listen to every piece of feedback? Who knows? But they definitely won't listen if you don't say anything. So please take a few minutes, fill out the survey, help make sure the department understands what small businesses actually need during this transition. Plus, you get to tell the government what you really think, and how often does that opportunity come along? All right, moving on. Now let's go to our questions. We have Shelby, who has asked us, how will we know if the contracts we handle will require C3PAO assessment or self-assessment for level 2? You need to understand it goes again with there's a split in the type of CUI data, okay? And again, the contract will state that you will need CMMC level 2 with a third-party assessment, or you will need CMMC level 2 with a self-assessment. Your contract or your contracting officer will be able to answer that, because it's going to, again, depend on the type of CUI that you are handling. Again, we've reached the point where I stop talking at you and start talking with you. So if you do have questions, and I'm sure you have lots of them, let's dive into what's on your mind. I'm not going to jump into the chat. I'm just going to get them fed to me. I got another one. How long does it typically take to achieve CMMC level 2 compliance? The honest answer is it depends. I know that sounds like a cop-out, and consultants love saying that, but it really does vary based on your starting point. You need to understand, if you're already following most NIST SP 800-171 practices, look, you might get there in 3 to 6 months. It's not unheard of. If you're starting from scratch, guess what? It could take 9 to 12 months or even longer. The assessment itself is just 1 day or a few days, but the preparation, meaning all those requirements, documenting everything, training staff, that's where the time goes. Our advice: don't focus on racing to the finish line. Focus on building that sustainable security program that you actually can maintain. A rushed implementation that falls apart after assessment absolutely helps nobody. What happens if we lose our CMMC certification during a contract? Well, remember, it's not a certification. It's, if you're level 1, it's a self-attestation. If you're level 2, it's either self-attestation or you have the C3PAO, and it's over a period of years. But again, say you are on a 5-year contract and you have to self-attest every 3 years. If you self-attest and then 3 years later can't self-attest, you will lose the contract. Other questions. Can we use cloud services like Google Workspace or Microsoft 365 for handling CUI? Again, great question. What you need to make sure is that they are CMMC compliant. You need to use the right versions. Both Google and Microsoft offer FedRAMP authorized versions of their cloud services specifically designed for government contractors handling CUI. Microsoft, you want what's known as GCC High, or Government Community Cloud High, or DOW environments, not just regular commercial Microsoft 365. For Google, you want the Google Workspace for Government. The commercial versions don't meet the requirements for CUI. Even though they're great products, it's like having a really nice car that doesn't meet emission standards. It might be awesome, but if it's not compliant, then it's not going to give you the specific purpose that you need, because you're not going to be able to use it. Now, this is one area, sadly, where a lot of companies trip up. So I'm really glad that you asked this. Make sure your cloud provider can show you their FedRAMP authorization documentation. That's going to help you get through. All right. Well, we are starting to come up on the top of the hour. So because we're coming to the end of our time together, it's not a goodbye, it's just a see you later. Let me show you all the ways that you can connect with Project Spectrum, because trust me, you're going to want to bookmark these resources. You've got our website, your home base, everything we talked about today and much more available on the website, templates, tools, training, articles, all there. You can email us with a specific question if you need that personalized guidance. Email our support team, support@projectspectrum.io. They are actual humans who know the stuff inside and out, not some automated chatbot that's going to tell you, try restarting your computer, or is it on? Training webinars like this one. We do offer these regularly on different topics. So we cover everything from specific NIST controls to incident response planning to supply chain security. Check our website for upcoming sessions. Follow us on social media. Project Spectrum on YouTube and on LinkedIn. We post regular updates, tips, news about regulatory changes, and yes, occasionally some cybersecurity humor, because if you can't laugh at the absurdity of trying to keep up with constantly evolving regulations, you'll cry. And then something really cool is that virtual help desk feature. Go to our website. There's an orange question mark in the bottom right corner. You click that, you're connected directly with one of our cyber advisors. It's like having a cybersecurity expert on speed dial. They can help you with questions about specific controls, clarify regulatory requirements, point you to the right resources, or even schedule more detailed consulting sessions if you need that hands-on help. Trust me, we're here to make your compliance journey less painful, more successful. Take advantage of these resources. Many of them are completely free, and even the paid services are designed to be accessible to small businesses. All right, we've reached the end of our journey through the wonderful world of the 48 CFR rule and CMMC compliance. If your head is spinning a little bit, that's completely normal. That's probably why Microsoft Teams crapped out on me earlier. This is complex stuff, and anyone who tells you otherwise is probably selling you something or actually hasn't tried to implement it. But here's what I want you to take away from today. It is challenging. Yes, it requires time, money, effort, all investments, but it's also absolutely doable, especially with the right resources and support. Look, you didn't get into business to become cybersecurity experts. You got into business because you're amazing at what you do, whether it's that manufacturing precision components, whether it's developing innovative software, providing critical services, whatever your specialty is. The CMMC requirements are just the price of admission for continuing to do business with the DOW. Think of it like business insurance or quality certifications. If you don't get excited about paying for liability insurance, you realize you do it because it protects your business and it makes you eligible for opportunities you wouldn't have otherwise. So remember, 3 things. Start now. You're not alone. It absolutely matters. We have reached the end of our time. Apologize for going a minute over, but I did have a few minute break in there, so hopefully you were able to get some coffee. Thanks again for attending. Remember, reach out to Project Spectrum with any questions, concerns, or if you just need someone to commiserate with about the joys of federal compliance. Thanks for joining us, everybody, today. Stay safe, stay secure, stay compliant. We wish you the best on your cybersecurity journey. Have a great day.